Good evening. Chicago leaders, influencers, and peace advocates. My name is John Davis, and I will be your MC tonight. Thank you for coming out tonight to the Sound of Peace in Chicago conference. As it is now summertime here in Chicago, many people are gathered with their families and friends to soak up the warmth, of course, and create beautiful, beautiful summertime and springtime memories. But sadly, this scene of peace and serenity isn't a universal reality for all of Chicagoans or even the United States. Our streets have become war zones where innocent people get caught in the crossfires. There were 2,785 victims of gun violence in Chicago last year alone. Of that number, 650 were fatal gunshot wounds. Despite our collective efforts to achieve peace, we have yet to feel fully free and to free ourselves from war and violence that so often devastates our communities. HWPL Chairman Man-Hee Lee knows this devastation all too well, as he himself is a Korean War veteran that had to fight against his own brethren in a divided nation. Because Chairman Lee has witnessed firsthand the destruction and loss of life brought on by war, he has made it his mission to travel the world and advocate for the cessation of war. In line with HWPL's work, the purpose of tonight's conference is to restore the hope that we can and will enact change together. We must come together in support of the International Peace Initiative that clearly defines the ways in which we can end war permanently. This International Peace Initiative is the DPCW, Declaration of Peace and Cessation of War, a bottoms-up approach to peace building that includes 10 articles and 38 clauses, ranging from topics such as religious freedom to repurposing weapons for humanitarian purposes. The DPCW is the answer to how we can cease coercion and threats of violence against nations and their people. Instead of building nuclear weapons, let us then turn our attention to build each other up and to create a world that we are so proud to leave to our future generations. I know that you all came out tonight to hear the words of peace advocate Chairman Lee, but regrettably, he will not be joining us tonight due to an unforeseen change in schedule. Instead, we will watch a video of the speech he recently gave at the United Nations on May 31st, 2018, for their intercultural dialogue for peace development. But tonight's event will proceed as follows. First, we will listen to a series of speeches by 6 guest speakers, followed by a short video from HWPL, cultural performances, HWPL, Chairman Man-Hee Lee's UN speech, and then we will have the peace letter and unification letter ceremonies, followed by the HWPL publicity ambassador ceremony reception. And before we go into the first part of this event tonight, HWPL would like to recognize a few distinguished guests that have joined us tonight. Guests, as I announce your names, would you please briefly stand where you are and then return to your seats, of course. Let us give a round of applause for Secretary General of the U.S. Council of Muslim Organizations, Osama Jamal. Judge Stanley Hill. Cook County Department of Veterans Affairs Director Bill Brown. Imam Dean Mohammed. Chancellor Dr. Wasiullah Khan. And Dr. Willie Wilson, who will be joining us, I think, a little bit later. As many of you know, he is running for mayor of Chicago and wouldn't miss this opportunity at all. So we expect for Dr. Wilson. Is that Dr. Wilson? Yes, Dr. Wilson, come on in. Let us please welcome at this time someone who is here in great spirit and presence, Judge Stanley Hill, who will speak more about the DPCW and its relevance to Chicago and peace-building efforts today. Judge Stanley Hill.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank Chairman Man-Hee Lee and HWPL for bringing Sounds of Peace to Chicago. Now, I was asked to speak on what can judges do to implement heavenly culture, world peace, restoration of light, articles of world peace. That's what I'll attempt to answer. Presently, a judge's role is not to make new law, but to uphold the laws which are made by the legislature. While making a decision about a case, a judge must follow the precedents set by higher courts with respect to the situation and the conditions that are applicable. A judge's freedom is restricted by the rules of precedent given to them to follow. A judge may not pursue his own notions of justice, ignoring the limits of the law. Since the legislature cannot define each and every possibility, there arises a need for judges to interpret the law. It is here that judges can so interpret to implement the Universal Declaration of Human Rights endorsed by HWPL. Courts may acknowledge in their rulings that all members of the human family enjoy human dignity and equal and inalienable rights, and that these rights represent a necessary tenet of the preservation of freedom, justice, and peace throughout the world. Thus, courts can confidently give effect to constitutional policies like equality, social economic justice, and the recognition of the rights of all individuals to a more meaningful life. Let justice be done to all people. If the strong oppresses the weak, confusion and discontent will ever mark the path of humankind. But with love, faith, and charity towards all, the reign of peace and plenty will be heralded into the world, and the generations of humanity shall be blessed. Our world is an increasingly place of violent conflict, hatred, and brutal atrocities, even in the name of God and religion. No religion is immune from forms of individual delusion and ideological extremism. We must be attentive to every type of fundamentalism espousing hatred and acrimony. Rhetorical slandering of any people is unacceptable. The contemporary world, with its open wounds which negatively affect so many of our brothers and sisters, demand that we confront every form of polarization which would divide us. We cannot allow this level of violence to continue without mobilizing a response. Our response must be one of hope and healing, with love, faith, and charity for all. Our efforts must be at restoring peace, righting wrongs, maintaining commitments, and promoting the well-being of all people. The challenges facing us today call for a spirit of cooperation. The complexity, the gravity, and urgency of these challenges demand that we pool our resources and talents to support one another with respect for our differences and our convictions of conscience. Violence leads to more violence. Hatred breeds more hatred. Revenge does not bring us true happiness or peace. Pierre Chardin was a French philosopher and Jesuit priest who stated, "Someday, after mastering the winds, the rains, the tides, and gravity, we shall harness for God the energies of love. And then, for a second time in the history of the world, humanity will have discovered fire." We must harness the energies of love by connecting our own path to a higher purpose. We must strive to build a world based on love, kindness, compassion, generosity, mutual cooperation, the recognition of the Spirit of God in other human beings, with an awareness of our interdependence with each other. There is much anger and violence in America because we have no leaders we can trust, no visions to invest in, no faith to ride. All we have are our own protean moralities, our countless codes, which we shape and reshape according to our own selfish needs. We don't care to think too far ahead. We remain trapped in whatever season we find ourselves without the courage to do what is right. As we grapple with the complexities of our age, I suggest that we agree upon one thing, that a crucial measure of our success in life is the way we treat one another in our lives. When we lessen the burden of living for those around us, we are doing well. When we add to the misery of the world, we are not. Our norm must be to love God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with your entire mind. That is the first and great commandment. And the second is, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of human persons, in the equal rights of men and women, in the promotion of social progress and better standards of life for people and future generations, and in the need to facilitate peaceful coexistence among the world's religions, beliefs, and ethnicities. We must pursue and promote these goals if we are to cool the flames of violence and bring about world peace. Eternal God, by whose power we are created and by whose love we are redeemed, guide and strengthen us by your Spirit, that we may give ourselves to your service today and each and every day in working for peace. Amen. Thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you.
Another round of applause for Judge Stanley Hill and his inspiring words. So instead of spreading the flames of violence, let's light the fire of peace. Thank you again, Judge Stanley Hill. Now, let us please welcome Secretary General Osama Jamal of the U.S. Council on Muslim Organizations with your round of applause as he shares his perspective on what peace is and under what circumstances it is achievable.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Well, this is the month of Ramadan, and you know, we fast. so I'm going to make sure that my speech is not that long and skim it. Yes, my name is Osama Jamal. I'm the Secretary General of the U.S. Council of Muslim Organizations. First of all, I would like to say that it is a privilege to be here tonight. When I was first asked if peace could be achieved, of course I said yes. It is absolutely possible, but it requires effort. It requires effort and moral responsibility on our part. In today's sociopolitical climate, differences in race, religion, nationality, and other factors can be an invitation for unsolicited advances, abuse, and malice. The United States of America is a melting pot, a country where many flee from war, poverty, and famine, because here we have the American dream. We are a country whose fabric has been woven by the beautiful and varied ethnicities, races, nations, cultures, and languages. However, when we are complacent in attacks against our Muslim neighbors, against our black and brown families, against those who look different and speak differently than us, we are unraveling the country thread by thread. If you find this kind of division and warfare abhorrent in other countries, how much more horrified should we be to see it in our own soil? One thing that I think is most important to understand is that peace begins with us. If we don't have peace within our own hearts, we can't possibly exhibit peace towards our brothers, sisters, and global family. We must be willing to acknowledge our differences in a respectful way and also to embrace each other. We have to be accountable to the way we treat each other and be willing to continuously learn and evolve so that we can become more understanding of each other and live in harmony. The amount of violence caused by ideological differences, religious differences, and political greed is simply unacceptable. The basic lack of respect for human life is unacceptable. In the Korean Peninsula, we have families torn apart and fighting each other, divided by a border created generations before them. In Myanmar, we have what the international community is calling a genocide of the Rohingya Muslims. When we begin valuing the life of each and every human being on this planet, we will make progress. When we make it a point to learn about each other, we will make progress. I sincerely admire HWPL in this respect. As the Peace Law Initiative Declaration of Peace and Cessation of War focuses on creating peace through a binding international law where friendly relations, freedom of religion, and a culture of peace will be the norm, not the exception. Peace can be achieved when there is a will and determination to achieve it. When we unleash our sense of humanity and recognize others and their need for safety, security, and happiness, we can then achieve peace in this world. Thank you.
Thank you for that speech, Secretary General Osama Jamal. And as you said, let us put our will and determination into achieving peace. Now, let us welcome Imam and lawyer Kareem Irfan as he gives his take on peace, cooperation, and unity in an increasingly diverse and complex international society. Please welcome.
Assalamu alaikum and greetings of peace. My dear friends, I stand before you as a fellow American, as a fellow world citizen, but also as one of 1.6 billion Muslims across the world today. They believe in one God. They believe in the prophets of God, including Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and Mohammed. May the peace and blessings of the Lord be upon all of them. They believe in the books of God, the Torah, the Gospel, and the Quran. They believe in the day of judgment and heaven and hell. Muslims pray, fast, give charity, perform pilgrimage to the Holy Land, promote the good, and forbid the wrong. In the tradition of Islam, we are reminded that thanksgiving was a distinguishing trait of all prophets, including Noah, Abraham, David, and Muhammad, peace be upon them. We are expected to be grateful to not just the Lord, but to his creation, particularly for the support and friendship of fellow human beings. The caution being that he who does not thank people cannot thank God. Allow me, my friends, to discharge that responsibility by first of all thanking all of you for joining us today. Your diversity of faiths, cultures, backgrounds is an immense strength. Your coming together for this noble cause of togetherness, of peace around our globe deserves special recognition. Allow yourself a round of applause, please. I also want to thank Heavenly Culture, World Peace, Restoration of Light, HWPL, for its commitment to the love of humanity and the spirit of peace. Their efforts are commendable in Chicago, in the US, and all over the globe, bringing together diverse people, independent of race, religion, national origin, all for a shared objective, a move away from hate and violence and toward a shared peace. Organizations like HWPL, which bring us together for global peace, have never been more important than today. Yet, having worked with and learned from some of the best service groups around the globe, I have seen that change actually comes about by the efforts of not organizations, but individuals like ourselves who are dedicated to and who are passionately driven by a cause. And what better cause, my dear friends, can there ever be than world peace? Today, virtually on the 50th anniversary of the death of our legendary peacemaker Bobby Kennedy, I'm reminded of his emphasis on peace, caring, and compassion in serving those in need. I like to call this call serving the deserving. Most importantly, his call for us to act together for peace, not just pray for it. Your presence here, our gathering today, testifies to that essential action toward peace. We are in the final blessed days and nights of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. This month, we Muslims devote ourselves to dawn to dusk fasting, spiritual cleansing, prayers, good deeds, and self-restraint. A strong theme of peace runs throughout Ramadan as we strive for spiritual peace as well as peace in our daily actions. As we approach what Muslims consider to be the amazing holy night of power, Laylatul Qadr, the emphasis is on fasting with intensity during the day and seeking the tranquility of spiritual illumination at night. In essence, achieving peace in its broadest perspectives. That's a key reason I'm truly honored to work with you today for this peace initiative. One core teaching of Muslims is that God created us into nations and tribes so that we might know one another and so that we might vie in doing good deeds. So we are supposed to be working together with people of all faith backgrounds to promote our shared values of mercy, justice, mutual understanding, and helping the vulnerable. According to Islam, diversity is not just a fact of life, but it is divinely ordained as a core virtue. The noble Quran says, if God had so willed, he would have made you a single people, but his plan is to test you in what he has given you. So strive in all virtues, strive in doing good. This foundation guides me, all of us Muslims, to relate to others in positive ways, to deepen understanding, to erase stereotypes, and to overcome prejudices. And again, to strive and compete in doing good deeds. And my goodness, striving for peace, eradication of enmity is the epitome of goodness, and that, my dear friends, is our mission tonight. The pursuit of peace as a means for overcoming hatred and violence. And today we focus on driving the world away from the worst form of violence, and that is war, toward the best form of goodness, and that is peace. The United Nations, as its charter expresses, yes, if we cannot applaud for peace, my goodness, what are we going to work together for? The United Nations, as its charter expresses, was set up to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war. Last January, then new Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, he made an unequivocal commitment to putting peace first in his New Year's Day statement. He committed the United Nations to the maintenance of global peace and security, with a focus on conflict prevention and sustained peace. However, my dear friends, conflict has been increasing while the United Nations' ability to effectively deal with it has been decreasing drastically. And that precisely is the significance of HWCL's Declaration of Peace. This slogan out here, it's not just a slogan, it's a concept, it's a premise that should drive us passionately to working together, shedding our differences and moving toward a bonded togetherness that builds peace around the world. And that is what we are here for today. This declaration promotes fundamental human rights and international law. It drives states to protect these rights. The declaration contains three overarching values that can begin to heal the nations of the world: conflict resolution, conflict mediation, and securing a pathway to sustainable peace. This declaration highlights the core values of freedom, justice, peace, security, intergenerational solidarity, promotion of social progress and standards of life, tolerance and respect for religious beliefs and traditions. This declaration, my friends, reminds us that ethnic discrimination, religious inequality, and other relevant tolerances that amount to marginalization, they are obstacles to friendly relations, obstacles to peaceful coexistence, and they are among the root causes of many international and national conflicts. DPCW, this declaration supports freedom of religion, supports resolving ethnic disputes through the promotion of mutual understanding, of dialogue as a foundation for the maintenance of international peace and security. And that is why I feel myself privileged to be a part of what HWCL does and what today stands for, what you all are gathering here for. So as I conclude, my dear friends, our efforts together, your presence today, they're all so critical. Let us reaffirm our dedication to striving hard for peace. Let us keep our hands joined, our shoulders aligned, our hearts bonded to our shared goal of establishing and preserving a lasting culture of peace in Chicago, across the U.S., and spreading around the world. By promoting love and unity for all people, we, each one of us working together, we can maintain peace as a sustained benefit for all of society. But let us individually and collectively reaffirm that commitment tonight. Let's do so right now. Here's to world peace.
Kareem Irfan, we love your spirit. You've got us all motivated. Thank you very much for your work in promoting peace and understanding of the different religions and ethnicities here in the Chicago area. Another round of applause. Now, the esteemed Chancellor of Chicago's East-West University, Dr. Mohammed Wasiullah Khan, he will come forward to share his experiences on the relationship between multiculturalism and peace in our global society and how we can achieve and promote peace between different cultures.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening.
I'm most grateful to Honorable Chairman Man-Hee Lee and the organization that have been so gracious to invite all of us here. I'm a Pakistani American, came at a young age to Indiana, did PhD from there, started looking for a job, could not get a job. So I was driving a cab in Bloomington, Indiana, working in a factory, selling insurance. Finally, I came to Chicago, became dean in Daniel Hale Williams University. It will be 40 years that we thought to build East-West University this coming 1st of November, so we will have a big celebration. And that proves that I'm at least 40 years old. To organize this HWPL is a noble deed. We don't have to explain what peace is, because all religions, their salutations wishes peace. The two most honored religions, Hinduism, Namaskar means peace, and Judaism, Shalom Aleichem, peace on you, became Salam Alaikum to these 1.7 billion Muslims around the world. Africa is a Muslim continent. Asia has the absolute majority of Muslims. 76% of human beings today live in Asia and Africa. But we Americans, I first must mention somebody named Genghis Khan, the same last name, but that doesn't mean that I'm a descendant of Genghis Khan. He used to say the greatest sin in the world is to be weak. And he died in 1227. And so we Americans very much know what inequality is. My contention is that this issue of inequality has to be solved. There cannot be any peace without justice. If there is no justice, there is no peace. And just making slogans and making pleas and having demonstrations, the powerful and the rich, they just smile what we are saying, that our lives matter or something else. My contention also is that if Magna Carta had not been signed in England in 1215, King John was forced by some of his lords to sign that Magna Carta. 500 years later, Industrial Revolution would not have started from England. At that time, India and China were the two most prosperous, strongest nations. Something like that did not happen there. So my contention is that if political and economic power is not sufficiently diffused in a society, I again repeat, if political and economic power is not sufficiently diffused in a society, the human potential of that society cannot flourish. And hence East-West University, which started to take higher education to the urban ghettos of this large city. I must also say that our history, US history, has not a linear history in terms of the effort to diffuse social economic power. and the benefits of knowledge, it is curvilinear. So I must say, I have been given 5 minutes. I must say that our struggle has to continue to take, not only to take education to all segments of our society, but also to keep making effort that human potential flourish by the more just diffusion of political and economic power. Thanks very much.
What a great personal story, Dr. Khan. And of course, that we all come from different cultures and live through many different experiences. We are united by the culture of peace, in which we wish to spread throughout the entire world. Let us welcome Imam Navis Muhammad of the Mosque Cares to discuss the multidimensional relationship between religion, peace, and war, and a few tips on how the different religions, races, and faiths can work together to foster peace and unify in the midst of war.
Assalamu alaikum. I'd like to thank Almighty God for this presence of being here. It is a great opportunity that the HWPL have invited me to say a few words. In our religion, we would say, Alhamdulillah. That means all praises go to God. I want to say this program, from what I see, why are we here? What drove us here? What was the purpose of taking time off our busy schedule to be here? It's because we're talking about peace, not just any peace, but the peace for the whole world. We need to condescend to understand that the important thing about peace is human rights and human dignity, what God has created us as all human beings. We have gotten away from what He has created us for. Our religious leaders, we can testify that that is true, that God wants us all to become human beings, what He created. We should not be caught up in titles. We should not get caught up in color, because those things are dividing us from what we are supposed to be. When you see a human being, or when you see a black man or a white man or a Mexican or Puerto Rican, that's not who he is. Under that skin is what God created, and he is a human being. And that's what we need to focus on. How are we going to come together as human beings if we let titles and scriptures and labels divide us from who we really are? We must find our richest religious leaders. We must go back and search what we missed, because it's our responsibility to make this thing right. According to your and my book. And once we do that, peace will come. It's saying peace is one thing. But if you live the peace and find it in your scripture what your book tells you to do, then there come the peace. Because those are the words of God Almighty, who gave it to from Adam to Mohammed. Peace and blessing upon all of them. We are people, human beings, striving for peace. And it's our job, religious leaders, not to look at them as your brother and your sister, not your servants. Those are God's servants. You are just a brother and sister just like them. So don't use your authority. Use your heart and show them love and help that poor. God tells us, say, look, what I gave you, you give it to them. If I help the poor, help the weak, help the needy, what I gave you, what you are pride on, what made your life better, then you should be the same and make their life better. Their life should not be less than your life because that's your brother and your sister. Alhamdulillah. We have to know our back and visit our scripture and throw the things away that don't work and use the things that work. We're all divided people. But that should not divide us. What should bring us together is unity as oneness of God. That's why we're here, right? How do we get back to oneness of God? Obey your Lord. Read your scripture and not change, put words in that does not fit your stride. Tell the truth. Stop lying and mistreating and trusting people and trust and listen to your people in your counsel, and they can tell you and help all of us as one humanity come together as one. We are Muslims, we are Christians, we are Jews. I have no problem with none of those titles because I love your scripture. Your prophet is my prophet because they all come from the oneness of God. In Islam, the Quran speaks of Muslims. It doesn't talk about Shiites and Sunnis. The Quran says Muslims. Let us stop using titles to divide us from the main word that God wants us to do. And God wants us to come together as human beings, as the oneness of God. I don't know how much time I got, but thank you, HWPL, for this opportunity. Let's go to work. Assalamu alaikum, Ramadan Mubarak.
Now, if you're not fired up after that, thank you, Imam Navis Muhammad. Yes, it is completely possible for the different religions to not only be allies, but friends that cooperate together to promote peace and harmony. Now let us welcome media personality and CEO of Christ Alive Ministries, Audrey Kenner, who will speak to us about the role of media in spreading and influencing a culture of peace.
Thank you. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. It is truly an honor to be here. I've collaborated with HWPL for years in their interfaith dialogues, where I am always inspired, motivated, and filled with hope. As a media personality, HWPL's work often makes me think about how peace, war, and violence are portrayed in the media. As I find myself exposed to images and storylines of mass shootings and riots and corruption rather than narratives that uplift the human spirit and promote peace and conflict resolution, I cannot help but wonder how many people are negatively affected. Sadly, I must admit, I find myself believing at times that there is no hope for peace. I find myself wondering how many others are being silently inoculated by powerful rhetoric and left feeling like war is necessary and peace unattainable. As a nation, we are becoming more and more desensitized as we daily consume violence. But are we becoming so desensitized that violence feels more natural than peace? Has violence become so embedded in our culture that we have come to accept and normalize a culture of violence destined to be passed down from generation to generation, rather than a culture of peace destined to be passed down from generation to generation. Ladies and gentlemen, the voices of peace must be heard, and media has the power through stories and information to impact the masses. Media must respect its power to influence for good or evil, or war or peace. Truth must be told through fair and balanced imagery and storylines. We must give power and media presence to those who lift up their voices and cry out for peace. Those who work tirelessly for peace deserve their stories not only heard, but news of their efforts should be spread far and wide. The media has a responsibility to the masses to report in a professional and unbiased manner, and to bring to light more voices of peace and more of the world's work toward peace. Article 10 of the DPCW HWPL's Peace Law Initiative is about spreading a culture of peace throughout the world. Establishing a culture of peace is critical to developing a healthy, stable, and equitable worldview, and media coverage is vital. Causes and organizations who work tirelessly to make world peace not a theory, not a concept, but a reality are the voices of peace. And they're the sound of peace. So finally, this is a rallying cry to reporters, editors, writers, publishers, and all forms of media tonight. We must make publicizing peace a priority by reporting about people and organizations who advance and advocate for peace in our city, in our country, and in our world. I charge you, members of the press and media, to be accountable. Be accountable for spreading the culture of peace as wide and as often as possible. Let's all work together daily to make peace our expectation, our norm, and a reality that's attainable in our society. William Gladstone, and for those of you who don't know, you can Google him now. William Gladstone once said, "We look forward to the time when the love of power when the power of love will replace the love of power. Then will our world know the blessings of peace." May we all, everybody in this room, everybody in the city, long to know the blessings of peace. Thank you.
Ms. Audrey Kenner, thank you again for that speech. You're right that media is a vital tool in not only influencing the public's perception of peace and its attainability, but also in informing people and encouraging them to move together as one in order to enact the kind of change that we want. Last but certainly not least, please help me welcome my friend, Naima Latif of Naima Latif Communications. Ms. Naima, who has had a long-standing interest in the affairs of the Korean Peninsula, will now come forward to discuss the reunification of the Koreas and the greater implication and effect that will have on international peace-building efforts in severely war-torn countries. My sister, Naima Latif.
In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, I greet you all with the greetings of peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
And peace be upon all my brothers and sisters. When I visited South Korea last September 2017 for the 3rd commemoration of the WARP Summit held in Seoul, South Korea. I had an opportunity to visit the South Korean War Memorial. Now, this is a museum that contains the history of war. And in that area, because it is a peninsula located between China and Japan, it's very strategically located. And so, for centuries, China and Japan have been fighting wars since before Christ to the present time. And this war memorial is lined with the names of those fallen soldiers. Name after name. And as you see the names along the walls, you realize that they represent the broken families, the devastation of war, the poverty that it causes. So this memorial was designed to remind future generations that we must develop a more peaceful way of solving our differences. This Korean War was fought by many nations, and it started back in 1950. Now, of course, many people are unaware of what the circumstances were that caused this war. We must encourage the reunification of North and South Korea because it has the potential, if there is another war, to evolve into another world war. In 1950, when the communist North Korean army invaded the non-communist South Korean lands, as Kim Il-sung's North Korean head of the army, armed with Soviet tanks, invaded and overran South Korea, the United States quickly came to the aid of South Korea. Now, Russia had economic interests in the north and America had economic interests in the south. So even though it appeared to be a war between North and South Korea, actually Russia and America were using Korea to fight each other. The war lasted until 1953 and reached international proportions. The United States spent around $67 billion in the war. Its purpose was to try to check communist expansion. But how many lives were lost in that war? How many American lives were lost? The Pentagon put the Korean War battle deaths at 33,652, and then other deaths, meaning deaths from war zones, from illness, accidents, and other non-battle causes, at 3,262. So that's a total of 36,914 American lives lost. And that's just America. But this was a war that drew in other people. So in addition to the United States of America, North Korea, and South Korea, many other nations also lost many lives. There was also, among the nations involved, China, the Soviet Union, Turkey, the United Kingdom, France, Iran, Canada, Australia, the Philippines, India, Greece, Italy, Thailand, New Zealand, the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, Belgium, Colombia, Denmark, Luxembourg, the Kingdom of Greece, the Ethiopian Empire, and the Union of South Africa. Now, we know when there's a war who generally gets drafted. It's the young men. So the young men, fresh out of high school, really care whether North Korea was communist or not? Probably not. All they knew was that they were told to shoot somebody in a certain color uniform. So how many young men came back dysfunctional from post-traumatic stress disorder after having taken lives and seen the horrors of war? How many young men never came back at all and left behind widows and orphans? And at the end of everything, what did we really gain? North and South Korea remain divided along the lines of an economic system. North and South Korea must reunite to serve as an example for all the many divided nations in the world, where people are fighting over differences in religion, in culture, in language, or just old tribal differences. We have many divided nations across the world, and North and South Korea must demonstrate that we can live together and accept each other's differences. When a country divides, there are usually family members on both sides. So family members end up being pitted against family members, just like in the US Civil War. You had some people living in the North and some people living in the South. So when war broke out, you had brother fighting brother. And this is the tragedy. We must allow the family of North Korea to come together and heal their wounds and resolve their differences peacefully. We, as a global family, must encourage it with our voices, our words, our letters, asking our leaders to support this peaceful reunification. We must make it clear to our leaders that we will not send any more of our people out to kill others. We must make it clear that war is simply not an option. So for all of us who have elected officials, let us let them know we want them to support the DCPW, the Declaration of Peace and the Cessation of War. I support the peaceful reunification of North and South Korea.
Truly, we are not only being enlightened, but inspired tonight. The reunification of the Koreas will certainly show the world that no matter what history of war and tension countries may have, it is not impossible to unite if all parties respectfully communicate and have open minds to compromise and to indeed welcome peace. Now, if you will all turn your attention to the screens as we prepare to watch the HWPL video.
For peace and stability in the global community, leaders from around the world are working in cooperation with HWPL. Also, they've joined hands together for peace in the Korean Peninsula, which is at the core of world peace. Established in 2013, HWPL is a rapidly growing peace NGO registered with the UN, working in more than 170 countries. HWPL's chairman, Man-hee Lee, has proposed the implementation of the international law, religious harmony, and peace education as a solution for peace, and visited 70 countries through 26 World Peace Tours, having dialogues with former and current presidents, prime ministers and ministers, and religious leaders who are now working as HWPL Peace Advisory Council members and publicity ambassadors. In Mindanao, Philippines, where a 40-year-long conflict cost the lives of more than 120,000, he mediated the Mindanao Peace Agreement, a breakthrough which even its own government couldn't achieve. Also, he drew support from leaders who had led democracy in Romania and East Europe to work for peace in Korea. Wherever the HWPL peace delegates went, people from all walks of life became one with us, regardless of nationality, race, and religion. The 2014 WARP Summit, which was attended by approximately 200,000 people, proposed that the whole world work together as one, as a solution to achieve the implementation of the international law, religious harmony, and world peace. To this end, 216 WARP offices in 124 countries are urging that religions should stop conflicts and take the lead in achieving peace. Also, the Declaration of Peace and Cessation of War, which was drafted by international law experts, was proclaimed in 2016 to turn the era of war into an era of peace. HWPL's peace movement, joined by all people in the world, will change the future of mankind to peace. We are gathered here for a noble cause to achieve peace. For a new era of eternal prosperity for all mankind that everyone has dreamt of, we will follow the path of peace together as HWPL.
As we saw, we can all become messengers of peace that spread the culture of peace around the world. Despite its humble beginnings, HWPL has now begun to flourish all over the globe and is gaining support from civil society, NGOs, governments, and more. The world is ready for peace. Are you? Are you? Yes. Are you? Yes. This is not a time to be timid on peace. Now let us welcome HWPL Chicago's director, Shinsuke Kim, to the stage as she discusses the past and current works of HWPL, its direction, and the importance of encouraging cooperation to foster peace. Welcome, Director Kim.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Chicago Peace leaders and advocates. My name is Shinsuke Kim, the director of HWPL Chicago. It has been said many times before, but I thank you so much again for coming out this evening. I look out into the crowd tonight. Wow, I feel so inspired and hopeful that we can change Chicago and the world from the inside out. Sitting even in this room, there is so much potential, so many catalysts to light the fire of change in our communities. You have all come out this evening because you believe that together peace is possible. Before I begin, I would like to apologize for the Chairman Lee's absence from tonight's event. Though his desire was to be here, he had an urgent matter come up and needed to return to Korea, South Korea, earlier than anticipated. However, he still wants to share his message of peace with you so that we can create the world of peace in Chicago. In a moment, we will see his recent presentation before the United Nations in New York. We are grateful that he was able to address key leaders in New York and is now preparing to bring our important message of peace from Chicago to the leaders of South Korea and North Korea and beyond. On behalf of Chairman Man-Hee Lee, I would like to briefly discuss about HWPL's initiative and some of the work we have accomplished as an organization, our next steps, and a final call for us to encourage each other and work together. Founded in 2013, HWPL is an international NGO dedicated to the work of peace. The three pillars of HWPL are the law for peace, peace education, and the World Alliance of Religions Peace Offices. These three initiatives are the foundation of HWPL as an organization, and they are embodied by the Declaration of Peace and Cessation of War, or the DPCW. The DPCW consists of 10 articles and 38 clauses covering a variety of international security and peace issues, such as right to self-defense, encouraging friendly relations between countries, and promoting peaceful coexistence among the different ethnic and religious groups. All of the work HWPL does is to put our initiative into practice and to continue the work of peace by signing the DPCW into an internationally binding law that will achieve and sustain peace for generations to come. To give you all a bit of background on some of the work HWPL has done globally, we have created peace programs in over 100 schools and universities around the world, established over 200 World Alliance of Religions Peace Offices globally to facilitate a peaceful interfaith dialogue. And we have over 600 advisory and International Peace Council members and publicity ambassadors from every faith, race, culture, all across the world. One especially notable result of HWPL's peace work through its three initiatives and the DPCW is the establishment of the Mindanao Peace Agreement in the Philippines. This peace agreement brought an end to the 40-year-long ethnic and religious conflict between Mindanao's Muslim and Catholic communities. If we work hard, if we work together, we can achieve the result for conflicts all around the world. There is still so much damage and destruction prevalent in the world. Now is not the time to be complacent, but instead we must cooperate with each other to make peace a reality. As the director of the HWPL Chicago, I sincerely wish to see us cultivate relationships with each other to work for peace together. Though we all come from many different places and have different backgrounds, we are united as one community for one cause. As the saying goes, it takes a village, so let's become the messenger of peace together. Once we begin walking on the path of the peace together, that seed will be sown into our heart until it grows and become a beautiful tree that bears the fruit of the love, unity, and harmony and peace. Let us be encouraged to continue to do work, what is useful and what is right and necessary to achieve peace together. Now, let us please turn our attention to the screen to see the broadcast from the UN, our Chairman Lee's speech on how this world can enter the era of peace. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Man-hee Lee from HWPL. I would like to thank all the panelists for your speeches. I will record everything deeply in my heart. At this time, I would like to talk about a different culture from what was mentioned before. I want to speak about the topic of peace and cessation of wars. I believe this is a topic that must be discussed in this generation. HWPL is recognized internationally. Everyone has heard about HWPL. The reason is because of the achievement of world peace and the achievement of the prevention of conflicts and war. We have gone around the world many times and have met with various leaders of all levels of decision-making. We have also met with various religious leaders. I understand that the founding reasons for the United Nations was for maintaining international peace and security and for promoting sustainable development. The United Nations, I am sure that this is the work you have been doing. But currently, this world is in much conflict. There have been numerous efforts to achieve peace. Many people have worked for peace. I want to ask all of you something. People have different and various perspectives. However, we cannot think that this is a world of peace because there are many conflicts and disputes in various nations around the world. We also cannot ignore the fact that nearly 80% of wars stem from religious roots. If religion goes against its role to humanity, it has lost its purpose. In each state, there are policies. I am sure this foreign and domestic policies should be focused on and for the people. However, the world is still very chaotic. Therefore, we have transcended all nations, ethnicities, and religions to work ceaselessly with the sole purpose of bringing all wars to an end. There was always one thought that has not left my mind. It was to meet with the UN ambassadors just as I am today. Of course, I have understood that the ambassadors here are working for their nation and their people. But I want to ask for cooperation for all of us to work together. As I have been working for quite a long time, going around the world, I have never forgotten my wish to meet with the UN ambassadors. I have met with former and current heads of states, ambassadors, chief justices, parliamentarians, to receive the signatures of cooperation to work for the cessation of wars and the realization of peace. We opened the Peace Summit in South Korea, where politicians made an agreement to enact an international law for the purpose of bringing all wars to an end, for all religions to become one under God. We opened the Peace Summit. On that day, we called on heaven and on earth as witnesses, and in front of God, in front of all the people, Politicians promised to enact an international law. The religious leaders promised for the alliance of religions, and the leaders of civil society promised to urge for this implementation. You may wonder how we have carried out this promise. Currently, we understand that this is not an individual work. When heads of state around the world show their support of the declaration presented in the official form, this will surely draw the attention of the United Nations, making it much more possible to implement the declaration's provisions at an international level through the UN and its Security Council. This is something that has to be done within this realm, intergovernmentally. Moreover, religions must dialogue to become one, because there are many conflicts attributed to religious differences. For this, we have established peace offices internationally for the comparison of scriptures, with the purpose of finding the most trustworthy scripture that will guide to an alliance of religions. There will be no more disputes and conflicts caused between religions due to differences. As it has been promised during the Peace Summit, currently we are working to keep the promise. 2 days ago, I arrived from the Republic of Korea to the United Nations. I came here to meet with all of you. Before coming here, I visited 9 different countries as well, and have met with the former and current heads of state. Former heads of state are the older brothers, and the current heads of state are the younger brothers. Therefore, I told the older brother to make the younger brother understand about the declaration and make efforts to pass this law. In the world, there are thousands of people working for peace and the cessation of wars. Many people are making an effort for this, for the work of humanity, not because they are compensated for their efforts. But there are many volunteers who are working for this purpose. The founding reasons of the UN is not authority nor money. What shall we leave as a legacy to successive generations? Is it money? Money cannot be eternal. What I want to leave as a legacy to the future generations is a peaceful world free of wars. This is the work that must be achieved by the people of this generation. It should not be left to another generation. Moreover, all heads of states, if it is truly that they have been appointed for the people, they should make the cooperation to sign for the international law for peace. For the religious leaders as well, if a leader truly believes in the holy God, there cannot be disputes. In Mindanao of the Philippines, there was a religious conflict between 2 religious organizations that have been in conflict for more than 40 years. Unfortunately, the politics and the government could not resolve this issue. There were 120,000 casualties due to this dispute, none that were compensated for the loss of their lives. When a war breaks out, who goes to the battlefield? It is the youth who did not have a chance to bloom. However, it is not the law nor politics that compensate for the loss of their lives. There were so many lives thrown away in this manner. To compensate is to bring them back to life. Of what use is a young life, born in our day and age, if it is thrown away without having had a chance to bloom? I myself served in the Korean War as a combatant at the very front line of the war. In this tragic war between brothers, I heard the cries of my fellow soldiers as they wondered why they had to die, and saw countless deaths and pains before my eyes. I have heard the cries and distress of the soldiers. There are tears and cries because they want to survive in the war. Why do the people have to suffer through this horrific war? Therefore, I am working with the initiative of IPYG and IWPG as the two wings of HWPL, with the purpose of achieving peace and the cessation of war. Lastly, I ask that each state and current heads of state communicate with the cabinet members and lawmakers to conclude this work. If they sign to work together, it will be passed through the UN General Assembly. I am sure that all of the ambassadors are representing their own nation. Therefore, I plead and ask for your cooperation and your contribution for this work by urging the support of the president of each nation. I made a book about our organization, a book about the work of HWPL. I plan to display it as a collection in national libraries of each country so that all people can have access to it. This is the work we have been doing. Just as I so much desired to meet with your excellencies, I have delivered my will to you. I ask that you do the same, to request the governments to work together for peace. After the peace summit in Korea, 21 lawmakers were appointed as an international law peace committee to draft a declaration, and in England, at the Supreme Court, the work was finalized. People at the Supreme Court in England will know what I am saying. This is no small work. This was done with much effort and through many discussions with each other. Because the content is not pertinent to one's own country, if one says it cannot be done, and the other says it can, and if people oppose content and try to adjust things merely based on their own country's interests, this cannot be so. This law should be agreed upon, and if its content will lead to the cessation of wars, you must say, okay. We understand that in the world, there were many powerful countries. Do they still exist today? No. Everything is going back to its original form. If God is on earth, He will govern the earth. There is the culture of earth and the culture of heaven. I have worked with the purpose of restoring the earth with a complete light. If the declaration cannot bring all wars to an end, this document is not needed. However, if this will bring all wars to an end, the declaration should be adopted, because we cannot expect peace unless we work together. We need to leave to our successive generations a world of peace. I want to ask you, raise your hand if you want or desire war. I have visited the Philippines and Mindanao because someone asked for me. And this is the very question that I asked. I asked them to raise their hands if they wanted war. There was no one. I asked them to raise their hands if they wanted peace. Everyone raised their hands. I went around the world many times and have never met someone who desired war. Because we do not desire war, I believe that we can achieve a world of peace. Everyone wants peace. Also, it is the same for the representatives of each nation. They desire peace, not war. Ask them. They will say they do not. Therefore, they should agree to the implementation of the international law for peace. If this is not done, I know that there was much effort done by myself and the organization. I have met with the youth and the heads of state and the Romania National Assembly. Each person I met promised to work with us for the purpose of peace. I am sure you have seen this also. Therefore, we must do this work. North and South Korea did not divide by themselves. During the Second World War, I was a young student. I am very well aware of what happened. I did not belong to any side to fight in battle. However, immediately after the end of the Second World War, Korea was divided at Germany Potsdam. There were 3 presidents present there. I am very well aware of this. When it comes to work, there are those with more experience and those with less experience. But regarding our country, the Republic of Korea, I know the consequence the people have faced, as I myself am a citizen of Korea. The Korean War did not break because of our citizens. Until when do we have to live like this? Divided. There have been 4 million casualties due to the Korean War. Through a war we did not create, our country was divided. What are your thoughts? Not only achieving peace in our nation, but international peace is needed. 3 years ago, in Romania National Assembly, I met with 25 heads. A few days ago, after this and that, interrupting for a long time, again, the 2 Koreas held hands in peace. If a country as severe as ours can be united, world peace will also come. 3 years ago, I said the same thing to presidents of every country. I also erected monuments with the Declaration of Unification at either end of the demilitarized zone.
The declaration is erected on stones in the shape of the Korean Peninsula. Additionally, on the 25th of May, I wrote the Declaration of World Peace. All countries around the globe recorded the contents of that declaration. I also had the contents carved into a monument. In Mindanao, I asked, did God really tell you to kill others? And what can you do to compensate for the lives of those you've killed? I told them to speak up if they had anything to say and how they would proceed. So at the place before God and before people of the world, they promised they would cease war and work together for peace. They also gathered many peoples, made their resolution public, and erected 2 monuments with the words they promised. I have the contents recorded. That war of 40 years came to an end, did it not? Then shouldn't the 2 Koreas, who never actually fought each other, also be able to accept each other? We must keep this global village safe. There is no place that supports life like Earth throughout the universe. Humanity inherited this treasure. We must take care of it. Ladies and gentlemen, do you know how many nuclear weapons there are? There are thousands, are there not? Don't powerful nations use these to kill people? What use is there in creating instruments to kill people? Shouldn't we create things that bring life? Things that save people? We must transform what has already been created into useful tools and get rid of weapons of mass destruction. How long must this continue? I have visited many countries. Schools of those nations are implementing peace education. They request peace education curriculum. So I also developed a curriculum. They even visit our country to receive peace education. I see that the world must be changed into a world of peace. What education is better than this? So we should do it like that, with the mindset the UN was originally started with. Now we must achieve the work of peace. Please do this. I have traveled this far so peace can be achieved. We should not break this with individual countries' motives and interests. This work of peace will be broken if countries keep insisting merely on their own interests. First, if we can only end war, all congressmen should discuss this and accept it. If not, even if the General Assembly of the UN introduces this, the law will not be adopted. Since we need this opportunity, shouldn't we urge members to support this? If your hearts are united as one, we can do it. United Nations, which was created for this purpose, must show its strength at this time. Isn't this how it should be? If you say this is impossible and say no, what will future generations say? Won't they resent you? When you say you love your country, and its people, won't they say it's a lie? They will. I've been waiting and wanting to tell you this. I have spoken here in the UN many times. Today is not the first time. But today is the first time I've addressed you, you distinguished ambassadors. As a person and a family member of this global village, I am doing what I must. I hope everyone here can be of the same heart and same mind and work together to achieve world peace. Thank you all very much.
We will now proceed with the letters of support for the reunification of the Korean Peninsula. We will be accepting the reunification letters on behalf of HWPL Chairman Lee. Now we will have Judge Stanley Hill and our first group, you will come to the stage, present your letters, get your photographs. Don't be bashful. Thank you, Judge Hill. Dr. Damon Arnold. Dr. Arnold, thank you for your support for Korea and Korean unification. Diane Latiker. Thank you for your support for Korean unification. Dr. Willie Wilson. Dr. Wilson, thank you for your support for Korean unification. Amita Habil. Amita Habil, thank you for your support for Korean unification. Let's give her another big round of applause. She has persevered tonight from a wheelchair to this stage, and that's inspiration for all of us. Next, our representative member of the International Peace Youth Group, Matthew Plotner, will come forward to hand Director Kim a peace letter written on behalf of IPYG, urging global support of the DPCW to be signed into a binding international law by the UN and countries around the world. These letters will be sent to the heads of countries by September of this year to achieve world peace. Let us welcome Matthew to the stage. Thank you, Matthew, and IPYG. And let us continue to encourage our youth to make a global impact and to join the movement for peace, as I see so eloquently done every day by our young people across this country, taking the reins of peace squarely into their hands. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now we begin the HWPL Ambassador of Publicity Awards. This prestigious award is given to those who have played the critical role of advocating for and for enacting peace in their communities. This award recognizes those from all walks of life, including those prominent in interfaith work, policy and law, education and advocacy. These people have gone above and beyond in their communities and areas of expertise to work for peace and have been exemplary in the values that HWPL is committed to. We will call the recipients in two groups. When your name is called, please come forward and line up on the stage. After each group is received its award, there will be a group photograph with Director Kim. Okay? I will now begin calling the first group up to the stage. Reverend Helen Sinclair. Don't worry, we'll get you. Hold on. Yes, I love you. Sonitha Habil. We should have just had you just stay on stage. So sorry. Thank you for your strength. Audrey Kinner. Judge Stanley Hill. Dr. Willie Wilson. And Dr. Wasi Khan. Thank you, sir. These are all mighty warriors for peace. Dr. Wilson, if you would, please, just say a few words, if you would. Come right over here.
I want to say thank the Lord for His amazing grace. Thank all of you all for being here tonight on behalf of peace, and thank all the other young men and ladies who getting this award for in the name of peace as well. We will continue to support peace around the world. As you know, we need peace in our home, as well as you know we need peace in Chicago. Lord knows we do. Thank you for this prestige award. Thank all of you for being here. Thank you, Ms. MC, and thank all of y'all. God bless you.
Big round of applause for our recipients. I will now begin calling the second group up to the stage, so please come forward when your name is called. Dr. Damon Arnold. Dr. Lynn Muhammad. We thank you for being an example of peace. Dr. John L. Alexander. We thank you for being an example of peace. Ms. Bushara Amawala. We thank you for being an example of peace. Diane Latiker. Thank you for being an example of peace. Dr. Amina Matthews. Thank you for being an example of peace. Mr. Walt Whitman. Thank you for being right on time. And thank you for being an example of peace. Who's going to be? Anybody going to speak?
Thank you, guys. Congratulations, everybody.
Mr. Whitman.
You gotta help me.
Mr. Whitman. Dr. Alexander? Yes, sir. Would you, since you were so helpful, would you have a few words?
Well. Hello, everybody. Hello. Come on, let's wake up a little bit.
Yes, indeed.
God has gave us a lot of words for today. And in the Bible it said, when the storm is raging, peace, be still. And that's one of my favorite sayings, because I feel like when the storm is raging, I have to be the peace. So I learned to stand still and weather the storm. Because you know when the tornado is outside, you're not going to walk through a tornado, are you?
Oh, no.
Anybody going to walk through a tornado?
Oh, no.
So I want you to be encouraged that the person sitting next to you, just say hi to them. Because we don't know everybody in the room. So turn around to your next person, look him in the eye, and say hi.
Hi.
How you doing? Because this is power right here. Peace in the world should be peace in Chicago. And if we're going to have peace in Chicago, we should definitely have peace in this room. Let's say that again. We should have peace in this room. God made us all alike. Dr. Wilson has always spoken a lot of good words, and he's one of my biggest encouragers. Judge Stanley Hill is one of my biggest encouragers. And now, this is the biggest encourager next to God. Thank you so much. This is my news team. Sorry, y'all. I brought my own media crew.
You know, it's amazing when it has been reduced to that, when all the fake news and wannabe news, and you got to carry your own media organization with you. We have reached a new low. Let's give a final round of applause to all of our recipients tonight. Welcome CRG folk dancers with your round of applause. The CRG folk dancers. Lastly, please enjoy this short cultural performance by the Keresilo, which means way of peace in the Singhalese, Mali, and Guinean languages. They will be performing a combination dance from different African cultures. This performance will include the Sunu dance, which originates from the people of the Mali Empire, modern-day Mali, of course, in Ghana, and the Sinte dance from the Nalu people of Guinea. Fun fact, this group is formed by local HWPL Chicago volunteers who have roots in West Africa. We thank them for their formation. Let's give them a big round of applause. Kera Silo. Now, if that doesn't get your blood boiling, that's excellent. That's excellent. That'll get us all up and dancing. All right, everyone. This brings us to the conclusion of tonight's conference. It has been a phenomenal night, and we thank you for not only your participations, but your perseverance through little hiccups here and there, because they are just human things. And what we're trying to build is something that is going to sustain humanity for as long as humanity is on God's earth. So, this brings us to the conclusion. We thank you all, and we thank you for your heart in this work for peace. A big thank you again to Chairman Lee, Director Kim, and HWPL's work. As this conference, it wouldn't have been possible without them. And you're deserving of that round of applause. And thank you all also for tonight's performers and everyone that helped create this event. Let's keep working together and continuously support the DPCW for a better world. And please help yourselves, of course, to the refreshments, I think, in the reception area. And don't forget to stop by the publicity booths near the registration area to take a brief survey, if you don't mind, sign the DPCW letter, and learn more about HWPL's initiatives and how you can participate. It takes all of us in this village to bring the kind of peace that we want. Thank you for coming, and good night.